It's 2 in the morning, sometime in the 1500s. You wake up with a problem. A very old problem. The oldest problem, actually. And the bathroom hasn't been invented yet. Your options tonight: a cold clay pot under the bed, a trip outside in the dark to a hole in the ground, or, if you're fancy, a wooden seat over a pit your whole family has used for a decade. And in the morning, that pot has to go somewhere. In most cities, somewhere meant the street, out the window. There was an etiquette to it. You were supposed to shout a warning first. Here's the scale of the problem. The flush toilet in your home is barely 150 years old as a normal thing. For the previous 10,000 years of cities, improvisation. So how did civilization actually handle its least glamorous problem? The answer involves sponges on sticks, professional night diggers, one very unlucky man named Richard, and the single most prestigious job at the court of Henry VIII. Start with Rome, because Rome, as usual, was weirdly ahead. Public latrines, long marble benches, holes side by side, no walls, no stalls, 20 seats, 0 privacy. Romans sat together, chatted, made business deals. It was a social club that happened to be a toilet. Instead of paper, a tersorium, a sea sponge on a stick, rinsed in vinegar water. One small detail: it was shared. The whole latrine used the same sponge. The Romans conquered the known world, and this was their one unforgivable decision. Beneath it all ran the Cloaca Maxima, a sewer so massive it still drains rain in Rome today, 25 centuries later. Rome had better waste infrastructure in 200 BC than London had in 1800. Then Rome fell, and Europe took notes on absolutely none of it. The Greeks used pessoi, smooth pottery shards. Archaeologists found some with names scratched into them. Politicians, personal enemies. Yes, ancient Greeks wiped with pieces of pottery bearing the names of people they hated. Democracy found a way. Medieval castles had guard robes, stone closets jutting out over the wall, dropping straight into the moat. Nobles also hung their robes in there. The ammonia fumes killed the moths. That's where the word wardrobe comes from. Your closet is named after a castle toilet. In cities, the chamber pot ruled for 1,000 years. In Edinburgh, the evening ritual had a soundtrack. Gardyloo, mangled French for "watch out for the water." You heard it, you ran. Tourists learned the local pace very quickly. Somebody had to empty the pits, and that somebody was the gong farmer, paid triple wages to dig out cesspits at night. Good money, real risks. A London man known as Richard the Raker drowned in his own cesspit in 1326. His neighbors wrote it down, which is why we remember exactly one thing about him forever. Meanwhile, in Japan and China, human waste wasn't a problem, it was a commodity. Night soil fertilized the fields. Landlords sold collection rights. There were literal turf wars over it. The East ran a circular economy, while Europe was aiming out of windows. And at the very top of society, at the court of Henry VIII, one courtier held the title Groom of the Stool, the man who attended the king's most private moments. It was one of the most coveted jobs in England, total access to the king. Power is proximity. France went the other way. Louis XIV received ambassadors while seated on his chaise percée, a velvet throne with a hole. And Versailles, the most magnificent palace on earth, had so few facilities that courtiers regularly used the stairwells. The Sun King's palace smelled historically significant. The flush toilet was actually invented in 1596 by Sir John Harington, godson of Queen Elizabeth. He called it the Ajax, installed one for the Queen, wrote a book about it, and was laughed out of fashion. The world wasn't ready for 250 years. What forced the change was, bluntly, catastrophe. By the 1850s, London poured everything into the Thames, the same river it drank from. Cholera killed tens of thousands, and a doctor named John Snow traced one outbreak to a single contaminated water pump. Nobody believed him. Then came the summer of 1858, so hot the Thames itself became unbearable. Parliament soaked its curtains in chloride of lime and finally fled the building. History remembers it by its official name, the Great Stink, the moment a smell changed government policy. Parliament funded engineer Joseph Bazalgette to build over 1,000 miles of sewers, and cholera left London. One engineering project did what centuries of medicine couldn't. The flush toilet finally moved in. And yes, its great Victorian salesman really was named Thomas Crapper. Toilet paper arrived last. The Chinese court used paper by the 14th century, hundreds of thousands of sheets a year, while the West got reliably splinter-free rolls only in the 1930s. Splinter-free was an actual advertised feature. Sit with that. Today the whole apparatus is invisible. You will spend, on average, about 2 years of your life on a porcelain device connected to a hidden river network under your city, and never once think about where it goes. In 2007, the British Medical Journal asked experts to name the greatest medical advance since 1840. Not antibiotics, not vaccines, not anesthesia. The winner was sanitation, toilets, and clean water. The thing nobody romanticizes saved more lives than everything we make movies about. You know Fleming, Pasteur, maybe Lister. You don't know Bazalgette. The men who buried rivers of disease under our cities saved more lives than almost any doctor, and their monument is that you never have to think about them. And it's not finished history. Even today, roughly 1 person in 4 worldwide lives without safe sanitation. The most underrated invention of all time is still being rolled out. So tonight, when you flush and the problem just leaves, that small mechanical sigh is 10,000 years of cities finally exhaling. The oldest problem humanity ever had, solved so completely, you've never had to think about it. Until now. If you enjoyed this, you'll want to know what people did about bad teeth before dentists existed, starting with the strange fact that their teeth were better than yours. Subscribe so you don't miss it.